Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. It says so out on the hood of the car. We have changed the oil around here at WNST and moved post-election into a different world at Baltimore Positive. But some parts of the old world and the new world always come together. You know, John Eisenberg, when I would tell you that I've heard from Bob Nusgard and Mike Marlowe and Jack Gibbons and Chris Zhang and Sandy McKee and many of our other compadres from back in the day when you were at the Baltimore Sun taking those Enterprise Sunday takeouts on, Joe Don Looney, amongst others, and maybe Steve Dalkowski, who I'm having an author on. But to where we are these days in the post-election era, it is good to see you. I miss you. Like, I don't know that I've ever had 6 or 7 months in my life when you and I haven't been together in the same room together. So the closest we're getting during the middle of a pandemic, Eisenberg, is Zoom. So good day to you, John. How are you, my friend?
Well, I'm doing well, and that's where we are, isn't it? It's just Zoom. If you're gonna be in touch with someone, you're Zooming. I've certainly done a lot of Zooming.
At the beginning, I was singing, all I want to do is zoom, 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 zoom. And now,
Yeah.
7 months into this, I just want to get to 50,000 feet because, brother, we're going to talk about Lamar and losing to the Steelers and the Colts, and we can talk about Trump and Biden and whatever the hell is going to happen once the aftermath of all of this is. You are my last piece before the election night, so I'm not really working a lot around here other than on changing what we're doing. For you in this era of sports and watching it get shut down and brought back to life, and we haven't talked through all of this, and you're an Oriole fan, you're a baseball fan, you're a Texas guy. How much sports have you watched since all this has happened? That's probably the biggest picture because sports has defined our lives for what we do.
Yeah. Probably not quite as much, that's for sure. I have watched. I was glad to see it come back because it was a pretty forlorn without it. I mean, I am a sports guy, and I do enjoy watching the games. I did have some questions as to whether or not we should be doing this at all. Playing sports through all this, and when those numbers were so high, and they're going back up again, and there's a lot to think about there. But it does seem like they got their hands around it pretty well, most of these sports leagues. So I watched some sports. I did watch the Orioles play some this summer or whatever that was, late summer. I wanted to sort of check in and see how that went. I found the team kind of interesting, so I did watch that. Baseball players were on. I checked in on it. I didn't watch it.
Well, that's a lot to say you watch baseball. To say you watch sports, I guess when it's taken away for 5 months, and I was doing other things politically and, my company and build the website, doing all these things. But when I think about the seasons of my life, I'm 52, right? Like baseball just would end. This is November. We'll be breaking turkey out. We won't be like at the Masters in 2 weeks, right? So every part of this clock is off. But the hockey and the bubble sort of came first. I'm not the biggest NBA guy, and there was a lot of political activism going on there, and I didn't recognize the jerseys and the teams so much. And I am a guy that likes my Tigers and my Yankees jerseys to look – I like them to look like what they're supposed to look like. So God bless the Dodgers from last week. But I did not watch baseball. I was divorced from it. I watched a little bit of the Orioles in the beginning. I did not watch the playoffs, except my wife watched more playoff baseball than I did because it was kind of on during the day. And I don't recognize it, dude. And that's not like me at 52 to feel that way. And I saw Ben Lindbergh wrote a piece in The Ringer, which was fantastic this week, about like where does baseball go? But I have found this to be a very, very humbling season of my life. And you've known me since I was 15, 16? I mean, when did I find you? 84, 85, somewhere in there?
84.
I was born in 68, bro. So do the math, right? So I've known you most of my life. And I find, like, I'm into the NFL, but I didn't realize the Terps were playing Penn State till like a minute ago. And things are happening in the sports place that aren't even finding their way to me. And I see the ratings. I see all of this, and it's been our life. And I'm wondering, like, if they don't have us, if we're not glued to the Orioles at this point, who's into it?
Yeah, it's a fair question. It's a very fair question. Certainly we could do mini shows. I mean, baseball, and I'm a baseball guy. I love it. I think baseball definitely has some issues. and not least of which is financial coming out of this thing. And there's a lot of money going down. I think the minor leagues are going to, I mean, I think they're struggling for existence, the minor leagues. And then the very way they do business is going to change. I'm just talking about the industry. I think baseball as a career path is in for some tough times because of the money. I mean, the minor leagues are going to be different. If you're a player, good luck making that your profession. It's going to be tough. And the Orioles, I know, just an example, went through some furloughs and some layoffs. Look, I'm worked for the Ravens. I'm glad that no one's been laid off, no anything. I mean, the NFL has its house in order a little bit more that way financially. So I'm relieved about that. I like my health care. But I think baseball has issues. Yes, I think that it has. There is less of an appetite. I mean, there's no fans. It's very weird. It's all weird. It all feels off kilter. I am glad it's there. If anything, it was a distraction from the political season, which just went on and on and on, and I'm very into it. But it was, if anything, it was nice just to have something mindless to look at and talk about.
Well, let's talk about the NFL and how they've gotten to this point. And as you and I go to press here, John, Marlon Humphrey pops with the Rona, as they say, the kids say on the internet now, on the IG. You and I being OGs, I got a flight to Indianapolis this week, okay? And, I've been there a million times, so have you. You and I have been there together. We fist bumped. We probably eaten the cookies up on the roof of the Hoosier Dome as well as the new place, right? And they moved my flight, the morning flight up and the afternoon flight back, and it's kind of pinchy. And I'm like, do I want to spend the night? And the virus is crazy. And now Marlon Humphrey pops. And I'm thinking, like, I went to Houston for no one, and I sat on the roof. I drove down to D.C., and I got home before 5 o'clock. I watched the Zoom press conference on my phone in the car on the turnpike, John. And then I went to Philly and I brought my wife home some delicious Dan Szechuan noodles from Midtown and Center City and some pretzels. But I haven't been in a room with a player. I feel very detached from it all. I haven't met Patrick Queen. He seems like a nice kid. I'm probably not going to meet him for 3 years because that's kind of the way my brain scientifically sees this for how this is going to go. And this is altering how you and I have ever done business or ever written a column or ever thought about what we do or the value or the purpose for what we do. And this weekend, I'm thinking, you know what? I'm just going to save the points in case I can ever use them to take my wife back to the Caribbean one day, because like spending an afternoon in Indianapolis to go in, sit in someone's Uber with a mask on, go up to a roof to watch a football game, to not ask questions, to get back in an Uber, to go back to an airport, to come back, to talk about it on the radio. I know I've done it for 25 years, and I'd love to do it again when people are gathering. But right now, it's not that I'm going to quack out. I just feel like I need a TO. You know what I mean? Coach Krzyzewski here. I need a TO.
Yeah, I would say that's the wise way to go if I were in your shape. This isn't the year to do it. There's no joy.
There's nothing in it. There's no value other than knowing who's in the tent on the sideline and when they cut away for a commercial, who might be down.
Yeah, there's no reason to do it. I mean, the good news is the games are pretty good. The games are good. I mean, and so you can enjoy the game, but just do it at home. I mean, there's all sorts of changes in our lives and how this happens. I am not. I'm covering the Ravens from the home office, and it's as simple as that. I mean, there's limits to press conferences. There's limits. I mean, you can't be around the players, can't be around the team. I'm Exhibit A of a guy that I can do my job from home. Do it. Is it preferable? Absolutely not. I mean, I've thought about this a lot. And one of the real, one of the great joys of this job is to be in the locker room and to go talk to guys when the press conferences, when the lights aren't on, and say, hey, what about this? What about that? How did this happen? I mean, that's how storytelling evolves. Not on a podium, but that's gone. You can't do it. And I don't know when it's
brutal.
Back.
Like, I'm 52. I've been doing this since I was 15. There is a morning piece of this, right? For me to say, I am not spending my day on Sunday And I love sports, and I don't even hate Indianapolis, and I love and the game itself, you still see the game far better being there, but I'm really trying to weigh this.
Yeah, well,
And
but what's really sad is it's gotten to the point where, I've sat in those press boxes forever. At this point, the better seat is at home. I can see more. I can definitely see more on a 50-inch high definition television than I can on a press box in a press box where they, it used to be at the 50-yard line, in the box, but now the gavel came down, sold. That territory in the stadium was sold for somebody else's luxury box, and we were put up in the rafters. So, in the corner, my vision stinks anyway. So I'm better off in front of the TV. And sad to say, and if they're not offering me the locker room, which I can have, it's just Zoom. So, why not? Why not be at home?
Well, and then I guess that brings us to this. The fact that, and I've been on the rampage about how good the games have been, how good the league's been, whether it's watching Russell Wilson on a Monday night or watching, any of these teams. I mean, just the surprise of watching Joe Burrow win this week, that there are good stories in the league, and then these horrific Dak Prescott injury, what happened to Ronnie Stanley, and we'll get to the Ravens in a minute with John Eisenberg of Ravens.com. But the fact that the league has made this work, and now baseball's had a finish, basketball's had a finish, hockey's had a finish, they've got to get this to the finish line. And when I start to think about losing to the Steelers on a football level and 7 teams being in the playoffs, and whether there's a home game or a road game, and whether they have to fly to Pittsburgh or Kansas City or godforsaken Buffalo to play in January, or whether they're going to do this in Phoenix and Las Vegas and LA in a bubble of some kind because they can control it literally. I think they're going to bubble, and I don't think we're going to have playoff games in bad weather. And I don't think that home field and losing some of these games, that's just my opinion, looking at it the way it is. I think the Chiefs and the Steelers will be penalized for being 14-2 because I don't think they're going to do it this way in January because they can't have Marlon Humphrey have this happen. And I guess I'll leave that at your doorstep to get us current, John.
Well, that's entirely possible. I mean, I wish I could tell you I was hearing rumblings internally, and I hear nothing on that regard. So, but that – I'm just a twig in the stream. I have no idea, but I do think that's entirely possible. They are going to want to get to the finish line. I thought, I will say it, back in the summer, I had real doubts about whether they could pull off this non-bubble season. Pretty quickly, though, it was clear to me, and this is going back to August, September, they sort of had a grip on how to go about doing this and how to do it. And they had protocols in place for outbreaks and how to do things. And there was an awful lot of hell to pay stuff going on in the locker room about, if you're the dope that lets this happen and screws it up for the rest of us.
And then Doug Peterson pops the night before camp up in Philly, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's nuts. But I do think they got their hands around it enough to get through the regular season. Whether they need to add a week if more games are canceled, we'll see. I do think they're going to have playoffs. It could well be in a bubble. And the home field is not that great in pro football anymore anyway, Nestor. And it was the case last year when the stadiums were full and there were fans in the stands. The home teams barely won more than 50% of the games. And this has been a trend that's been going on for 2 decades, changing. It was 60% of the games start of this, in 2000. Now it's 50%. Why? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's been written about that. And I don't know that I have my finger on it exactly, but the home field is already gone in a lot of respects. I mean, it still exists in some places, like here. The Ravens are really good at home, but they haven't been winning these big home games. They've been losing these big home games. And meanwhile, they haven't lost a road game. They haven't lost a road game in 14 months. They're really good on the road. They might be better off. In that situation. So who knows? But I do think that we'll get to the end of this season one way or another, which is really what matters. And so I expect to see that.
Greatly enjoying our conversation with John Eisenberg. You can find his work out on Twitter. You can find his books. You can find his Ravens work, his podcast, and all of that. I want to give a couple of shout-outs to some of our sponsors here, including our friends at Cole Roofing. I'm just going to shotgun them out because they're all over the new Baltimore Positive website. Our friends at Sporticulture with the Ravens Magma lamp, officially licensed in the National Football League. Court will be on talking about the flowers and the novelty items you get at Sporticulture for the holidays. Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. I'm featuring the Western fries here, even though they have the waffles out and the scrapple for Don Moeller. But I'm always big on the Western fries, hand-cut and breaded in the store. Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. And our friends at Planet Fitness still working out. Our friends in the Brick family joined us last month talking about the John W. Brick Foundation and mental health. Very, very important as we get into the holidays. Just want to give a shout-out that our friends at Planet Fitness are on the side with that. John, tell me about your podcast a little bit because, I've made this brand move, right, from WNST, which I've done since 1998. You've known me since I was agate clerk, Nestor in 1984, at the News American and the Sun. But I'm trying to make a move here, and I think we're all trying to figure out where media is going and how to present things. I mean, you're an author by trade and writing books, and I've written books, and I've got stacks of books that people didn't buy from a championship a couple of years ago. John, I think I've told you, I knew the world was going to hell when I went to the Ravens Roost Convention in Ocean City in June of 2013, and I had books with words in them. And there were 10,000 Ravens fans there, all soon-to-be Trump voters, and they all came up to me and they said the same thing. Hey, Nasty, he got new pictures in there. I don't read new books. I ain't read new books. That's too many words in here. I don't read new books. So when I heard that, I knew we were in trouble. And, as we sit here on the eve of an election result, media's changed. And, you're writing these podcasts now. It's kind of a different art form, right? Like we had friends that went on to write television shows and write in different formats. This is something that's sort of a different thing for you to discover a little later on in your writing classes, right?
Very definitely. I started this podcast 2019. I'm in year 2 now. It's a Ravens podcast. What happened to that guy? It's basically where are they now with some former players, and picking the players is a big decision. There's a lot of good stories out there, some good, some bad, happy, sad. I want to tell them all. But I do, once I do that, I interview the players and surrounding voices, and then I write a script, and then I perform the script. But the writing of the script, very interesting, a different skill. And I have found it comes pretty easily. It's a lot of fun. I've written 4,000 columns and 10 books, and I'm still writing. And, I enjoy that.
Thank God for that. Thank you, John. Keep writing, please. Keep writing.
I do enjoy that, but this is a new, it's new muscles, that's for sure. And I enjoy it.
So's building a website called Baltimore Positive and taking calls from Nancy Pelosi and having a shave and you know what I mean? Like, I find it to be an awesome extension for what you do for all of us, that we take what we do and we build from it, right? And it seems to me like you're having fun. Every time I talk to you, you're telling me how much work it is, but it's like it's good work for a guy your age to do something that means something and fills your day with something that you love doing, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's great. I wake up, I've got columns to write, and then I got a script to write. So it is very interesting. I do enjoy it. I've run it this year. I've done, Kelly Gregg, great conversation with Kelly.
Yeah, let's go through the names here. I want to hear who you, because I'm going to go back to Kyle Bowler in a minute. So I'm going to write him down because I want to bring him up because I got a funny story. But so Kelly Gregg makes the cut. Give me the make the cuts for 20.
Well, Jason Brown.
Okay. Oh, wow. I mean, I've been trying to find him for 5 years. Go ahead.
Well, that's probably the best performing podcast I've put out there. It was the first one this year, and just really, really enjoyed it. An amazing story. I've done Kelly. I had Adelius Thomas dropped before the election here, and he's really into the voter suppression. He's living in Georgia, and the thing that really got him going is he's fighting that voter suppression, which is just horrific in Georgia. And so that I wanted that on the air beforehand. I've got one coming on Mark Clayton, who is a very interesting dude and a great guy. One of my favorites.
I got to say this. Each one of these guys brings a little bit of a smile to my face in a different way, because it's defined my life hanging out with these guys and really knowing that, I know all these people that you're bringing up, and some of them played more minor roles or major roles in Ravens history in one way or another. But this is what we miss, right? Like, stopping in the middle of this is the part about, like, not going to Indianapolis this weekend, or not being in a locker room, or not talking to players, or not being there when they come in the room the first time on draft day, or not remembering that first time you went and talked to Priest Holmes in the back of the Westminster cages because they didn't even give him a real locker because he was undrafted. And then all these years later, what these guys are doing with their lives. Mark Clayton's got like a headset, like a company, right? Yeah.
He's an entrepreneur. And
a lot of these guys are. ADs in restaurants. Justin Forsett has the shower pill. I mean, every time I have these guys on, they have a real cool life after football. And, like, you finding them makes it even cooler.
Well, I'll give you one more. I'm not going to give away the story here. And it'll probably be the most dramatic, poignant, sad, amazing episode. Greg Montgomery I'm going to do. And this is the first time he's no longer living. And of course, larger than life figure, the first Ravens years, he was the punter, and the punter with all the tattoos, he's years ahead of his time, and his black fingernails and his tattoos and dyed hair. And he was a real character. He was also bipolar, very out front talking about that. Big macho, big powerful punter, and went on to be a punting guru, and he worked in finance for a while. Really nice guy out there. He was also bipolar, dealt with that a lot. And, I'm still reporting out the story, but, 55 years old, I believe he succumbed to that illness, if you know what I'm saying here. And so I'm going to talk about his life, and his sister has started a foundation in his name to battle mental illness, and she's going to be my main interview and talk about Greg. And I just think
that thrills me, because I love Greg. Greg and I had a relationship, and he would text me, and when he would come to town, he would come sit in my studio, and he was a Houston Oiler.
He definitely was.
And you know what that means to me, right? So right. I was an Oiler guy, and I got the word on him, September, whenever it was, and teammates, the Matt Stovers were reaching to me and asking me questions, and, old school Ravens of that 96, 97 era who I'm friends with, Alex Bernstein, some others on Facebook were asking, and I still have no information. So John McClain, who I saw in Houston that week, who knew Greg pretty well, but there has been very little reporting on his death, right? I mean, literally, when I Googled it up, you've told me more than I knew 5 minutes ago already.
Well, I really don't know that much, but I will know more when I speak to the sister. And she's very much looking forward to this and wants to get his story out there. And, he was very out front about dealing with his illness. I've already talked to some people about him. And I look forward to doing this episode. I think it's a story that needs to be told. And so, I'm glad to have this format to do it. And I look forward to it.
He had a bar in Houston called Strychnine. Get it?
He was a character.
He was a good dude, Greg Montgomery. John Eisenberg joining us here. I just have to tell you, like, a couple weeks after you did the piece on Kyle Bowler last year, I was on a vacation, the last vacation I actually took with my wife before the plague. We were in Hawaii after the Seattle game. I'm feeling really good about that, John, right? Like, we beat Seattle, right? I've got a $99 flight to Hawaii. I got a cheap room and a cheap rental car and a beautiful wife, and the weather is perfect. And we plopped down at the pool day one after flying all the way to Hawaii. Plopped down at the pool. When I look in the pool, and 10 feet away from me is Kyle Bowler. So for the next 3.5 days, we ran into Kyle Bowler and his Miss California wife and their children, and talking football and talking life. And he said, I just talked to Eisenberg for the podcast. So I said, I'm going to make sure I plug that for John. John, yeah. For you with this version of the Ravens, I guess this finally at the end here brings us up to date with everything, which is, losing to Pittsburgh, Lamar, interceptions, Ronnie Stanley, COVID, Marlon Humphrey, the Colts. John, I remember when flying to Indianapolis for a Baltimore v. Indy game of any kind was a big deal. Boy, we've salved that wound, haven't we? I mean, that's sort of
over.
It's just over, and it's for guys like you and me of our age, that's kind of amazing that it's over.
Yeah, it was pretty hot for a long time. I can't remember when I declared it over in print. I don't know when it was, 10 years ago. I can't remember which game it was. And, I heard from a lot of people saying, no, it's not, it's not, so there's always going to be the Flat Earth Society or whatever it is. Exactly.
I walked the streets of Indianapolis alone. I'm not kidding. At 4 a.m. on Wednesday morning of Super Bowl week. And keep in mind how close we came to being in that Super Bowl, the Cundiff kick and whatnot. And I wrote a piece, and I went, and Indianapolis Morning Radio had me on, and their paper and Kravitz and those folks picked it up. And my website got like 1.2 million hits from people from Indianapolis because Nasty Nestor finally buried the hatchet with the Ursays because they really put on a great Super Bowl. So that's when I did it. So I can relate to it. And it feels good not to hate anymore. my wife's like, you're like a better human after letting that go, because for anyone sports related in this marketplace, guys like you and I should talk about what that represents, because it really did. You talk about, Trump and Biden and where we are in this country. In this city, just the words Irsay for a generation, this game would have meant that, right?
Well, that's where the hate is now in politics. The hate's in politics. It's not in sports anymore.
We don't hate the Steelers anymore, and they kicked their ass on Sunday.
Right, whatever. They won.
Well, where the team is right now is not – this isn't where the franchise wants to be. And obviously the Ronnie Stanley thing's devastating. Wherever the Humphrey thing is and COVID, that is to be determined. But Lamar has to play better. They miss Marshall Yanda on and on and on and on. Yeah. And we're now getting to the big boy time of the year where, they want to be an elite team, and they're just a pretty good team, I think.
Well, at this point, yeah, that's correct. I mean, they have to win some of these games against good teams before you can say anything differently. Do they have the potential to do it? For sure. Shore up some things. They certainly should have won the game against the Steelers. When you rush for 265 yards, game over at that point. I mean, they gave that game away. So, buried in that, and I thought the defense certainly played well enough to win. Big Ben made some plays in the second half, but not 1,000 big plays. Big Ben at 38 is throwing short balls for the most part, and he's really good still. But that was certainly a winnable game. So I would say, and the Steelers are undefeated and now number one in the power rankings, and the Ravens had them dead to rights. Should have won the game. So it tells you that, I mean, it's there for the taking if they can get themselves together and not give away the game so much. Had the Eagles, what was it, 24-6, almost gave that game away. They got to stop giving away stuff. And that's what they didn't do last year. They gave away virtually nothing. And Lamar was great. And teams are playing him differently. We're watching the education of Lamar right now. Teams are playing it. It's a really – the defensive coordinator – I said this defensive coordinators in this league are smart. They know what they're doing. Give them time. They've figured out how to play him. Spread the field. Don't let him get to the edge. And don't commit so much. Just lay back. It's like rope-a-dope, and he won't juke past you. Just tackle him. And so they're playing him differently. He has some limitations still that he has to work on. But he's frustrated, I think, with defenses that are playing him differently. He can't just blow and go. And so it's an adjustment he has to make. The coaches have to help him make it. And we'll see if it happens. He brings great talent and all that to it and commitment, and we'll see. But that's where they are.
Well, and you mentioned frustration, and I see that in him, and that's something that, look, we'd spent a decade here with Flacco and his demeanor and whether it was good or bad. I always thought it was good because it's the way my dad taught me, right? So, and that's a little different than, showing emotion and being frustrated and pounding the ground and what happens when you're down. And I'll say this, and I've said it all week, and I said it to Luke, sitting, having a Pizza John's cheesesteak, right? I was heating the oven up. I was going to eat at halftime, make myself together. And Ronnie Stanley goes down. The minute he went down, I saw the anguish. I saw the direction. I knew it was horrible. The minute I saw it, I didn't need a replay of it. My head went in my hand. I said to my wife as I got up, I walked by her, I'm like, they can't win a Super Bowl without him. And that was just my literal the first thing out of my mouth. Like, I didn't even think about it, is they can't win a Super Bowl without him. And then 30 seconds later, here comes the cart in here, and I'm thinking they can't win a Super Bowl without him. I don't know how I get talked out of that tree at any point, but I do think about them having to beat Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Indianapolis, Buffalo, whatever that combination would be. And, oh, by the way, then there'll be Seattle, New Orleans, whoever that would be. I mean, can they beat the Giants or the Jaguars or, yeah, okay, I'll hear all of that. But I think this has altered their destiny this year, that play and what they're trying to do without Marshall Yanda at this point and haven't replaced him. I don't want to be grave in my predictions because I think they're going to win a lot of games. I think it's going to be very hard to win a tournament without him.
You certainly can make that point. I mean, it's a huge loss. He's the best tackle in the league. I mean, even though they ran for 265 yards, TJ Watt was just all over Lamar. What was it, 8 quarterback pressures or something like that. So, yeah, they're going to have trouble containing some blitzes. I'm sure teams are going to be coming after him. I mean, they're fortunate to have Zeus Jr. they can put over there at left tackle. Is he running? No, he's not. And Fluker, a veteran at right, put at right tackle. These are guys that have been in the league and have played and know what they're doing. So they can put an offensive line out there. And meanwhile, the interior is where they've had some struggles. So it's a lot of holes. I mean, there's no question about it. But, I mean, how this league, the nutty stuff goes on, and who knows. Lamar, the main thing that needs to happen is Lamar, if he gets I think the defense is good enough. But they got to sort of figure it out on that side of the ball, and whether 3 running backs was too many, which could be the case. And they got a lot to sort out over there. And if they're able to do it, I think it could get interesting. But you can certainly make that case. Missing Ronnie is just too much.
Well, they play differently, right? I mean, there was 7 minutes and 29 seconds left to go, and I tweeted out, "This is last possession for them." They got the ball, and I'm like, they're not going to touch the ball twice. They're only going to touch the ball once. Now, in the end, they wind up touching the ball the second time and almost come back, but they don't play for field goals, right? Even though they have the best kicker maybe in the history, of the planet, and they easily could have kicked the field goal and given the ball back with 4 minutes and said, "Let's play some defense." And but now we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going, moving the clock. They just play differently, and when they don't make it on 4th down, like anybody else that doesn't make it on 4th down, you lose. If you don't get 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, you're gonna lose because you can't play that way.
We're having a different conversation if they convert that 4th down, and that's a 3-yard 4th and 3, and they get 2. So we're having a different conversation. But would they have made that play last year for sure? I think they need some more options. They're limited. I mean, they don't have consistent options. I'm talking about targets where he makes the defense go when they line up at receiver. Who is that? We got to go get them. I think they could use another consistent, dangerous threat there that they don't have. Snead has,
but they don't really want to throw the ball. Like that. Yeah. That's the deal. Like for Hollywood Brown to be pissed off after the game, okay, fine, you lose, whatever, pop off, say whatever you want. But dude, you're never getting the ball 12 times a game. That's not what this is. Pat Ricard plays into that, and Nick Boyle plays nicely into that. Give me the ball 2 times a game, and let me spike it 3 times a year, and it's a good time. But that's not the way Hollywood played ball in South Florida. No. And this is a psychology experiment now for Harbaugh as much as it is anything, because if they try to throw the ball 38 times a game, I don't think they're going to fare well in the National Football League as they're constructed right now.
No, they're a running team, and they should be a running team. And that was the best running game I've seen all year. Dobbins, I think, is a great player. I've loved Gus from his rookie year. Great guy to have there running straight ahead. So I really like those guys. That was the best running game I've seen, most consistent. I'm talking about the backs, not Lamar. And so I would continue to feed that beast. But you do have to be able to pass the ball. You can't. It can be the supporting part of your offense, but you have to be able to be more efficient than they've been. There's just too much going on that isn't helping them with that aspect of offense.
John, next podcast that drops is?
My next podcast that drops will be Mark Clayton.
All right.
Next week.
All right. Well, listen, stay safe and healthy here through the election. And if I don't, I'll see you. I mean, we used to just see each other all the time. Now we never see each other. I will bother you to Zoom once again at some point during the Thanksgiving holiday, and you can tell tales of Dallas days of yore. How about that?
Okay, that sounds good.
We play the Cowboys a couple weeks too. So, you know what? We'll go back and promote Cotton Bowl days. How about that?
Battle Royale in my family with my mother, 93 years old, living in Dallas, still a huge Cowboy fan. So, I hope we get through that week okay.
You know what? We'll do this. We'll come on because the Cowboys are going to stink. We'll talk about the Ravens, but I'll let you tell like some Hunt, Cowboy, AFL, NFL, Tom Landry stinks, Staubach comes. I want to hear what Ted Too Tall Jones. I want to hear all of that. Okay? So work that up because I never get that Texas out of you. You know what I mean? So
it's there.
I'm always bugging you for like the Orioles and the Ravens and like stuff. We'll do Texas next month. And now I got something to look forward to beyond pumpkin pie. John Eisenberg, find him at ravens.com and find him out on Twitter. Miss you, John.
Miss you too. Good to see you.
You got it. John Eisenberg, my pal. Find him each before the games and then, of course, after the games at ravens.com. The podcast, Kelly Gregg. Let's see here. AD, Mark Clayton, and tackling the Greg Montgomery story, which I will be the first in line to want to hear that and grab John for that. You can still find me, Ness, at BaltimorePositive.com. We're all together now. Luke, myself, one place, Dennis, everything we're doing, all in one place, WNST.net, AM 1570 Towson, Baltimore, and now at BaltimorePositive.com.